In this video, we're going to look at the lottery number generator programming problem from your textbook, and we'll write a program that is a solution to the problem. So the problem tells us to design a program that generates a 7-digit lottery number. The program should generate 7 random numbers, each in the range of 0 through 9, and assign each number to a list element. Then we write another loop that displays the contents of the list. Okay, so basically we're going to have a list, and the list will have 7 elements, and each of those elements will be a random number. Now, there are at least a couple of different ways that we could go about generating random numbers and assigning them to list elements. So let's switch over to the Python shell, and let's experiment with a couple of different approaches. So the first approach that I'm thinking of will work something like this. We're going to create a list that has 7 elements. Now, it's not going to matter what those elements values are. We'll just put some arbitrary value in there. But we create a list with 7 elements, and then we write a loop that iterates 7 times. Each time the loop iterates, it will generate a random number, and it will assign that random number to one of the list elements beginning at element 0. Okay? Well, let's sort of play around with that idea here in the interactive shell. First, I'm going to import the random module. We need that for the random.randint function. And next, I'm going to create a list. I'll call it numbers. I'm going to create a list that has 7 elements, and each element will be the value 0. Now, you'll notice in this statement, I'm saying numbers equal, and I'm just assigning a list with one element. That element is 0. But notice that I have the repetition operator followed by the number 7. So this means that we're going to repeat this list element 7 times. Now, if I display the contents of the numbers list, you'll see here that we have 7 elements. Each one is set to 0. Now, for the next step, I'm going to write a for loop, and I'm going to have a variable named index, because we're going to use this variable as an index to step through the elements of the numbers list. So I'm going to say for index n, and then I want to call the range function I want this loop to iterate 7 times. So I'm going to call the range function, passing the value 7 as an argument. So as this loop iterates, the index variable will be assigned the values 0 through 6. Now, during each iteration of the loop, I want to do something like this. I'm going to assign numbers sub index equal, and then this is where we generate a random number, random.randint, and you'll recall that the randint function, we pass 2 arguments. The first argument is the starting value of the possible range, and the second argument is the ending value. This simply says we want a random number in the range of 0 through 9. Okay, and just then the loop executed, and let's take a look at the numbers list, and you can see that in fact we did get numbers assigned to each element of the list. So this is one approach that we can take to create our list and populate it with random numbers. Okay, now let's look at another approach. Okay, in this next approach that we're going to look at, we're going to create an empty list, okay, a list that is a list, but it does not have any elements. And then we will write a loop. The loop will be similar to the one that we saw in the previous example, except that when the loop iterates, it will call the list's append method, and it will append a random number to the existing contents of the list. So basically that loop will iterate 7 times, and as a result it will append 7 random numbers to the list. So let's see what that would look like. First, I'm going to import the random module. I've restarted my Python shell here, so I have to import the random module again. And I'm going to create an empty list. We'll assign it to the numbers variable, and just out of curiosity, I'll let you see that the list, it is a list, but there are no elements in the list. So now we're going to write our for loop, and this time I'm going to say for count in range 7. This time the variable that we are using in the loop, it's not going to be used as an index in the list. It's just going to be used as a way of counting the number of iterations. Nevertheless, this loop will iterate 7 times, and in each iteration we are going to call the numbers.append method. And what are we going to append to the numbers list? Well, we're going to append a random number. Random.randint 0, 9. Okay, and the loop just then executed, so let's take a look at the numbers list, and there it is with the random numbers. Okay, so there are 2 different approaches for assigning these random numbers to the list. So now let's look at a completed program that uses one of these approaches and displays the lists on the screen. So in the program, first we import the random module, and then we create this set of global constants. Now you'll recall that we're going to generate 7 random numbers. So max digits is going to represent that, and each of the random numbers is going to be a digit in the range of 0 through 9. So start and end represent those values. And then here we have a main function, and so the first thing we do in the main function is create this list, and you'll recall that this is the approach that I took in the first example that I gave you. We create this list, which is going to have 7 elements, and we just initially created as 7 elements containing the value 0. And then in this for loop we populate each element of the list with a random number, and then here in this for loop we simply display the values that are stored in that list. And then here we call the main function to execute all of this. So let me just run this program, and you can see here's the output, and there are my 7 random digits. Let's run the program again, and you can see that here's a different set of random digits. If we run it again, we can see yet a different set of random digits.